Hi everyone, this is Catherine and thanks for tuning in. In this video, I want to talk about becoming a self-taught developer versus going to a coding bootcamp, compare the two, and tell you why I think going to a bootcamp in 2021 is still one of the fastest ways to becoming a software developer. Coding bootcamps have become so popular in the last few years, and I think a lot of their bad rap comes from the fact that there is currently a lack of regulation in this space, and because of that, so many of them have cropped up in the last few years. A few of them have really come under scrutiny for either shady income sharing agreements or poor quality of education. And I think this is where it becomes really critical that you do your research and make sure that you select a coding bootcamp that has a really good reputation and a solid, relevant curriculum. So I've been working in the tech industry for several years now, and currently I am a front-end engineer at a local startup. I'm also a part-time mentor at a coding bootcamp. That being said, the opinions expressed here are entirely my own. I'm not getting compensated for whatever I'm saying here. Keep in mind that everyone's personal circumstances are different, and some of the things that I mention here might not actually apply to you. One last disclaimer, you absolutely can become a developer without going to bootcamp. If money's an issue, there are plenty of resources for free online, so don't let that be a barrier and don't let it stop you. I know plenty of self-taught developers that have gone on to have really successful careers. That being said, I think bootcamp is a luxury that can help you speed up the process, and here's some of the reasons why you might want to invest your money into a bootcamp. One of the key benefits of going to a coding bootcamp is that it provides a structured learning path. When I was starting to learn to code on my own, and this was before I went to school for it, I was just bouncing around from language to language, from framework to framework, and falling victim to what's known as the shiny object syndrome. Should I do front end or back end? What's even the difference? I'd start learning PHP and then read in a blog or tweet somewhere that it's a dying language, and then I jump onto Ruby. Given that I knew almost nothing about programming when I was just starting to learn on my own before I went to school, I wasted so much time getting distracted by what I would call noise telling me that what I was learning wasn't ideal, and I just start over learning something new. What I realize now is that I was overthinking what language or framework to learn, and it was far more important to just pick a language or framework and stick with it and learn it deeply instead of learning the surface of language or framework, because no one really cares that you know how to do a for loop in like 5 different languages. In bootcamp, they take that burden of decision making away from you so you don't get stuck in analysis paralysis, and they also make sure that you haven't missed a really important area of web development or software development. This makes it really important, of course, that you take a really close look at their curriculum before you sign up to make sure that their curriculum covers what you want to learn and what's relevant for your position. This one's fairly obvious, so I'll just touch on it briefly, but one of the main advantages of going to a coding bootcamp is the personalized help and one-on-one mentorship when you get stuck. Maybe instead of spending hours on a simple NPM problem, you could just bang your head against a wall for like 20 minutes and then you can get some help. Obviously, there is huge value in finding your own solutions and solving problems on your own, because essentially that's what you're going to be doing in your job as a software developer. But I think that in the beginning, when you're just starting to learn, mentorship and one-on-one instruction can just help you speed up the process a little bit and you don't get overwhelmed and just too frustrated. I think this is super important when you're just beginning to learn to code, because it could be the difference between quitting or pushing through. The beginning is where most people quit, so having the guidance there could really help your career. So are you thinking of going to a bootcamp? If so, comment below and let me know which one you're thinking of going to. Also, if you're finding this useful so far, please hit the like button below. It's gonna help me reach other people who might find this useful. The next thing I wanna talk to you about is networking. Now, we all know how important networking is, but I think it's especially important for tech jobs. So software development jobs typically have hundreds of applicants, and you can increase your odds of landing in an interview exponentially if you have someone within the company to refer you. For example, personally, I have landed my latest role through a referral, and I also have referred tons of people during my career. If you do decide to go to a coding bootcamp, you'll be spending 8, 10, maybe even 12 hours a day with your peers who are probably also going to work in the tech industry as software developers or software engineers. and they could potentially refer you to jobs throughout your career. Also, keep in mind that the instructors and mentors that work at coding bootcamps, such as myself, we typically also have full-time jobs as software developers in the field, so we can be huge assets to your network. One of the things I hear over and over again as to why coding bootcamps aren't worth their price tag is that you can essentially learn everything they teach you online by yourself for a fraction of the cost or even free. And yes, I think you can actually get a lot of the material they teach you in bootcamp for free or for a much lower price online. But this brings me to my next point. Bootcamps offer accountability, and I honestly think that is huge, and people underestimate the value of that. If you're surrounded by people who are also putting in 8 to 12 hours a day and you've invested thousands of dollars into the program, you are much more incentivized to put in a ton of work within those 3 months. Well, okay, this totally depends on the person, of course, and your level of discipline and willpower. If you're not in too big of a rush and you have the discipline to spend hours a day learning on your own, then I think coding bootcamp is more of a luxury. It's definitely not a necessity. There's also some data showing that online courses, such as the massive open online courses offered by Harvard and Stanford, have really dismal completion and retention rates. In fact, according to one study, only about 50% of the students who paid for one of these MOOCs and said that they intended to finish managed to complete the course. Bootcamps thankfully have a much higher graduation rate, and from my personal experience, I see that the vast majority of students stick it out throughout the 12 to 16 weeks. Ultimately, what you get out of a coding bootcamp experience depends entirely on what you put into it. I know students that have put in the 8 to 12 hours a day necessary, they've put blood, sweat, and tears into the program, and they've received offers before they even graduated. But I also know students that have kind of cruised through the program and they've really struggled to find jobs. So it really depends on who you ask. If you do decide to go to a bootcamp, make sure you do your research ahead of time. Look at the student outcomes report, read online reviews, maybe even go to LinkedIn and talk to former students. If you want to hear more about tech and careers in software development, please subscribe below and hit that notification bell. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic day.